Hello, Minnesota Realtors. Welcome to the 2023 Forms Changes Overview. Here I'll provide an update to the forms changes made by the Minnesota Realtors Forms Committee. These changes go into effect on August 1st, 2023. To begin, I'll explain changes made to our residential forms, then I'll discuss changes made to our commercial forms, and I'll conclude with an explanation of new forms for 2023. Purchase agreements. This will be our residential purchase agreement, the vacant land purchase agreement, and our new construction purchase agreement. So first, the word "or" was added in between the two checkbox options in the mortgage financing contingency to clarify that buyers should be selecting one checkbox or the other, but not both. Second, the written statement section of the mortgage financing contingency was also changed. We found that the written statement provision of our purchase agreements did not address transactions where the lender waived the appraisal. So the Forms Committee included language permitting the buyer to indicate that an appraisal satisfactory to the lender has been completed or the lender has waived the appraisal. Finally, the inspection contingency was also revised. It now provides, if buyer cancels this purchase agreement, then this purchase agreement is canceled. This change was made for consistency with other sections of the purchase agreement and to permit the purchase agreement to cancel by its own terms for statutory cancellation purposes. And second, in the inspection contingency section, the word "intent" was replaced with "election" for additional clarity. Addendum or amendment to purchase agreement, buyer's move-in agreement, seller's rent-back agreement, and the residential lease agreement. So in June of 2021, Chapter 193 of the St. Paul Legislative Code, commonly referred to as the Stable, Accessible, Fair, and Equitable Housing Tenant Protection Ordinance, was repealed. Under the ordinance, residential leases for property in the city of St. Paul were required to include a just cause notice, so we included that notice in our buyer's move-in and seller's rent-back addendum or amendment to our purchase agreement, as well as our residential lease agreement. Since the ordinance was repealed, the just cause notice has been removed from our forms. Disclosure statements. Now this will be seller's property disclosure statement, the vacant land disclosure statement, and the seller's property disclosure. So this year, Minnesota Statute Section 355.155 was amended to introduce new disclosure obligations for owners of property where chronic wasting disease is detected. Accordingly, we have updated our disclosure statements to ask whether chronic wasting disease has been detected on the property. Now for our residential lease agreement, there were several amendments were made to Chapter 504B of the Minnesota statutes, which pertains to landlords and tenants. These amendments required 5 substantive changes to Minnesota Realtors residential lease. First, lines were added for one-time non-optional fees disclosures and recurring non-optional fee disclosures. Second, another line was added to disclose the total monthly payment, which specifies that the total monthly payment is the sum total of rent plus reoccurring non-optional fees. Third, in the utilities section on the first page, the word "or" was included to make it clear that utilities can be paid by the owner or the tenant, or the utilities can be paid in part by the landlord or the tenant. Fourth, new initial and move-out inspection sections were added to conform with Chapter 504B as amended. That requires that a landlord notify a tenant of their option to request an initial and final inspection. And fifth, the inspection of the premises and right of entry section was modified to state that a landlord must provide at least 24-hour notice to the tenant prior to entry. But the tenant may permit earlier entry, and the landlord can only enter between the hours of 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. unless the landlord and tenant agree to an earlier or later time. We'll move now to commercial forms. So in the Addendum to Commercial Purchase Agreement, Conventional, SBA, Other Mortgage Financing form, we made the following change for consistency with our residential forms. So 2 changes were made. First, the word "or" was added in between the 2 checkbox options in the mortgage financing contingency, again to clarify that buyers should be selecting one checkbox or the other, but not both. And second, the phrase "or the lenders have waived the appraisal" was added to address transactions where the lender has waived the appraisal. Now we'll discuss new forms. On the residential side, We created an addendum or amendment to listing contract, buyer representation contract, or facilitator services agreement. So the Forms Committee approved adoption of this new form, which can serve as either an addendum or an amendment to listing contracts, buyer representation contracts, or facilitator services agreements. Next, we created a disclosure statement, chronic wasting disease form. So as mentioned earlier, under Minnesota Statute Section 355.155, as amended, owners of property where chronic wasting disease is detected must comply with new statutory disclosure and other requirements. We developed this new disclosure statement to ensure that sellers satisfy the requirements of the statute. What are those requirements? Well, generally speaking, there are 8 requirements that apply to owners of property where chronic wasting disease is detected. First, owners must cooperate with the inspection of the property by the Board of Animal Health and Department of Natural Resources, conservation officers, and wildlife managers. Second, depopulate the property of cervidae. Cervidae includes white-tailed deer, mule deer, red deer, elk, moose, caribou, reindeer, and muntjac. Third, verify any herd of farm cervidae by an accredited veterinarian every 12 months. Fourth, maintain fencing. 5, refrain from raising cervidae for at least 10 years. 6, properly dispose of the animals. 7th, prior to selling or transferring the property, disclose in writing the date of depopulation and the other statutory requirements specified above. And 8th, record with the county recorder or registrar of titles a notice containing the date of detection and depopulation and any other information required by the Board of Animal Health. The new disclosure statement, chronic wasting disease, is designed to ensure that all these various requirements are met. Now on the commercial side, the Forms Committee approved adoption of a new form that can serve as either an addendum or an amendment to the listing contract or buyer representation contracts. Finally, all Minnesota Realtor forms will be modified to update the copyright information on the upper right corner of the forms, removing the city from the copyright. And those are the changes for 2023. Thank you very much.